Thank you, Chair. I'd like to come back actually to some of the issues that you were canvassing relating to radioactive waste and the practicalities of many, many years of flawed processes and hesitation, and just try and get a sense of what the current government's policy is. I'm also aware that this matters before the Federal Court in Melbourne at the moment, so I'm not going to try and trespass over matters that are being canvassed there. So I'll stick to policy. First of all, what's the current status of the Regional Consultative Committee? And I'm going to do something that's probably unprecedented and just acknowledge and congratulate the government for setting that up, because it's the first time in the 8 years that I've been working on this issue that we might actually have a range of options open to us rather than a foregone conclusion. So I do want to put on the record that we're getting a lot more out of this minister than we ever did out of Minister Martin Ferguson. So let's get down to it. What's the current status of that committee? What's its work program?
Thank you, Senator. The committee is has not been established yet.
Well, I'll just take off the rose-coloured glasses then.
Yeah. So the reasoning behind that is that, as you know, the site selection process is still ongoing. So
it's heavily contested.
That's right. So which region? So it's a practical thing. There is an absolute commitment to establish the regional committee, but with the current state of the site selection process, we have not yet established it. But you would be aware that even without the committee, we have spent the last 18 months or so providing a lot of opportunities for consultation for the communities in the area around Muckaty Station, to the extent that when the NLC approached us just 18 months ago or so for support for members of the NLC and some of the traditional owners in that region to go to ANSTO, we supported a visit down there. We've also supported, on request, again from that area, for people to visit an actual facility overseas, and that was in Spain. And more recently this year, we've also worked with the Central Land Council to support a visit by Central Land Council members to ANSTO again. All of those are just by way of supporting a fairly large regional group of people, but to provide first-hand factual information and provide an opportunity for all of those people to ask questions and get factual answers back.
What have you done to support the significant number of people, 4 out of 5 family groups, that are signatories to the Muckaty Land Trust, who very strongly oppose the Muckaty nomination and have done for 8 long years? What have you done to support them?
The selection of the people to attend and participate in those information exchanges was up to the Northern Land Council.
Who are the proponents of the project?
They're a representative body. A land council, as you know, is a representative body for all of the people in that region.
It was their nomination, Mr Sheldrick. You've been at this probably for longer than me. You know very well where that nomination came from.
I know where the nomination came from, but also understand that the Northern Land Council represents the people in their constituency. They approached us for...
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. I'm just concerned that some of this might be sub judice, given the matter is presently before the courts and is due for consideration this week. I'm just a little uncomfortable about this level of...
Minister, I'm happy to steer clear of anything that might trespass on this.
I'm happy to take your guidance on if you
proceedings.
object to anything.
Well, I don't want to invoke the public policy issues, but I think this is, in fact, I'm almost sure on reflection that this should be sub judice. I don't want this committee to be...
Well, Senator Ludlam, if you bear that in mind...
Understood. Let's just stick to public policy and to what the government is actually doing or not doing, and we'll steer clear of the federal court matters. Can you just confirm for us then that there's no present site characterisation studies that are planned on any timeline? You are actually waiting for the outcome of that case?
That's correct.
Okay. Have you received any alternate nominations for sites either on Land Trust land or elsewhere?
No, we have not.
Okay, that's nice and black and white. I like those ones. But the Regional Consultative Committee, my understanding is that the court matters probably won't be resolved until well into next year. Is that the federal government's understanding?
That's a matter for the court.
Is it your expectation, though, if you're going to wait until the courts have cleared up the matter of whether the NLC broke the law or not, among other matters, you won't be standing up the Regional Consultative Committee until those court matters have been resolved?
That's correct.
That is correct. And that, my understanding is, you're welcome to share your views if you wish, that that's going to be months, possibly at least a year.
Look, we simply do not know.
We don't know.
When this.
That's fine.
When those issues are going to be resolved.
So by what vehicle or unit or department is the Commonwealth proceeding? There's $22.6 million over the forward estimates from 14-15 for the second stage business case for National Radioactive Waste Management. What form is that work taking at the moment? And how far can you proceed with that when you don't know where this material is going to wind up?
So there's a significant amount of planning for such a complex undertaking as this. It's a significant number of, if you can allow me to say, moving parts. So we're currently in the department involved in a quite detailed project governance planning arrangement. We're developing the sort of accountability and all the reporting requirements that are going to be necessary to undertake this project.
Sorry to interrupt again. Look, Senator, this will form part of advice to the Minister in a policy sense, and clearly as it will form part of that advice, I don't think the officer can discuss these matters in greater detail, as ultimately the decision will be made by the Minister as to what form that this will take and the steps that will need to be taken into the future. So I think, given they are policy and future policy matters, and that this will all form advice to the Minister for his consideration, I don't think the officer can answer this. I'm not being difficult, and I acknowledge your generous comments at the start. But
well, I take it back.
I
started with an acknowledgement that we might actually have.
Well,
I'll
take back what the officer has already given you on the record. So
I'm not sure you can do that.
I know.
I do
think
acknowledge.
You can take back your thanks either. So
we have a consultative committee that looked as though it was going to be given quite an open brief as to. It wasn't. What I'm happy to acknowledge is that it didn't appear to be a foregone conclusion that a remote Aboriginal community was going to end up having this stuff dumped on it against its will. And that is the first time in 20 years that we might have had that open brief. And if that's not the case, and Senator Ronaldson, if you're pulling the shutters down, and that's not where we stand.
No, look, Senator, I'm not pulling the shutters down, but a lot of this will be, unless I'm advised otherwise by the Secretary or Mr Hoffman, if I am, then we can continue. But my understanding is that a lot of this will form part of advice to the Minister in relation to further decision making in relation to this. Is this right? Or?
You could close down any estimates committee on that basis.
I can add, the Minister is correct, but I can add, in an attempt to be helpful, Senator, that the budget measure that provides for the second stage business case contains a number of work elements. The initial ones of those are not site-specific. So there is a lot of work that can be done in terms of the functional specification, in terms of development of a safety case that is not site-specific. That plus the overall governance of the project that Mr Shodrick referred to is what we're getting on with now. The issue of a site selection, as you've mentioned and as you well know, Senator, is a difficult matter. Pending resolution of that, the work that is site-specific will then commence in the timeframes that have been allowed for.
So can I take from that, and I'm hoping this is a straightforward policy question, maybe to you, Minister, the government's present policy is for a national centralised radioactive waste dump at Muckaty, and what will you do if the court throws that out and finds that the nomination was invalid?
Well, certainly can't preempt what the decision might be. So to that extent, the second part of your question is theoretical. The second part of your question is theoretical.
First part's fairly straightforward.
And the first part in relation to this matter, I would not want to mislead you in relation to the specific policy. This is not my portfolio area. Let me finish. As you will appreciate, so unless the officers of the table are able to provide some further assistance, I think it's probably better that I take that on notice, and I'm happy to get that to you.
Okay.
I'm sure the Minister's office is listening. I'm happy to get that to you as quickly as possible, so I don't misrepresent the government's position.
Senator Ludlam, we have another 5 minutes before we finish, and I'll allow you to have the rest of that. But
I'm presuming the officers at the table aren't working completely in the dark. So just to be very clear, because I don't think this is a question that should be taken on notice, is it present Commonwealth Government policy, as far as the officers at the table understand it, to proceed with the construction of a radioactive waste dump on Muckaty Land Trust land?
Senator, can I say that there's a commitment to pursue the feasibility study around a long-term solution to radioactive waste storage. I think the site at Muckaty was a volunteered site, so I would have to take on notice, and I think a site hasn't been finalised. So in a sense, they're two separate issues. One is the development of a long-term storage solution, and I think the side options probably need to remain open. If there are other nominations coming forward, I'd have to seek advice from the Minister and Government whether they'd be ruled out.
All I would say is they're not seen as being separate issues for the old people of the Barclay and of that region around Tennant Creek and Muckaty, who have had this thing hanging over their heads for 8 years. It's not seen as separate to them. So is it that difficult to ascertain? What I'm trying to do is work out whether the government is proceeding with Muckaty and has a decision point that is yet ahead of it, depending on what the federal court determines, or are options actually genuinely open? That's a reasonably straightforward question.
And I think so, that I don't in any way give you information that's not correct. We'll take that on notice, so that if it requires any clarification, then that can be done.
Okay. Maybe I'll just take the second one as a supplementary on notice, whether or not the Commonwealth intends to proceed with the nomination, even if the Northern Land Council is found to have breached the Aboriginal Land Rights Act, which is what's been considered.
Look, again, it's a hypothetical question. We've got court cases before us. I think, quite frankly, that we should not be discussing either those or the potential outcome of those at the present time. I'm sure you understand that, Senator.
Late last year, Minister McFarlane, and again actually confirmed on March 19 in response to questions that I asked, and thank you for the reply, Minister McFarlane said, "I'm committed to visiting Muckaty Station when the schedules of all relevant parties allow." That was a commitment we were never able to secure from the former Minister who had carriage of this. Has that meeting been scheduled as such, and what steps have been taken to advance it?
Minister, I don't believe the meeting has been scheduled.
You have to call me Senator. If you call me Minister,
I beg your pardon. The whole world. Apologies to all involved, Senator.
Oh, I'd love to be.
go ahead.
I'm not aware that that's been scheduled.
Why is that?
There's a range of matters the Minister is dealing with.
But that was what you told us 3 months ago.
And it's about all, and the commitment remains, and it was subject to a range of parties' convenience. But I'm happy to confirm and come back to you on notice on that.
I'm just after a process as to whether this is a commitment that will hang in the air for another 8 years, or whether anything's actually being done to progress it. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
Look, Senator, there are a number of matters before the Australian courts at the moment, and I'm sure that the Minister is taking those into account, both in relation to his schedule and other matters. So we'll take that on notice for you, and we'll let you know. I don't imagine, if the Minister said that he's going to go, that he has any intention other than of going. I'm sure of that. It'll be a timing, and it'll be depending on a number of circumstances, and it would be inappropriate for me to predict what they may or may not be.
I might just throw a couple of quick ones on notice, if you like, Chair, if we're out of time. Current status of bilateral talks aimed at advancing the planned sale of Australian uranium to India. I'll get to take these up with Dr. Floyd, I think, the Foreign Affairs Department. I'm just wondering whether this department has any visibility of that, but I'll put that to you on notice.
Thank you.
Final one for you, Senator Ronaldson. Recent media reporting citing both Prime Minister Bob Hawke and current NT Chief Minister Adam Giles supporting the hosting of an international high-level radioactive waste dump in Australia. I'm presuming the government's aware of those comments. What's the government's current policy on international hosting of foreign radioactive waste?
I haven't seen those comments, and B, I will take that question on notice.
Well, thank you very much, and we